Now, moments ago, news has been broken. Yes, the Indiana Fever 2026 schedule has been released, and guess who they play first? Paige Bueckers. So all of the people that thought this whole injuries thing and Caitlin thing, that whole storyline is over with in my book. I feel like the Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese storyline is over. It was fun while it lasted, but now,
So here's what just dropped. The Indiana Fever rolled out their complete 2026 schedule today, and tickets start selling this week. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark is back in Indianapolis, putting in work at the Pacers practice facility. Now here's the wild part about all this. CBA negotiations are supposedly still happening, which means either this deal is basically wrapped up, or the league just made one of the biggest gambles in sports history. Something just changed in a major way. What's your take? Think the WNBA and Players Union already shook hands on a deal, and they're just waiting for the right moment to drop the news? Or maybe the league is playing chess here, using schedule releases to force the player's hand. Let me know what you think is really going on.
This morning that Breanna Stewart was pretty much saying that the CBA negotiations is pretty much almost over. They almost had a deal. Now, we get Caitlin Clark this morning back in Indiana in the Pacers practice facility getting ready.
The Indiana Fever just went ahead and released their entire 2026 schedule this morning. We're rocking dates, matchups, ticket information, the whole 9 yards. Now, if you've been keeping up with this CBA negotiation mess over the last few months, you should be scratching your head right now thinking, hold up, how does this make sense when there's no collective bargaining agreement locked down? That's exactly what everybody wants to know. Because literally yesterday we were still getting reports about how these two sides can't find common ground on anything. But now suddenly the Fever are out here selling tickets for games starting May 9th, and Caitlin Clark is back in Indianapolis grinding at the Pacers facility, acting like this season is set in stone.
Something else that we have to pay attention to is the Indiana Fever first couple games, man. Let's pull up the schedule right now. We'll face off on May the 8th. The season starts on May the 8th. Look like it's in Indy. And then we'll be playing Paige Bueckers and the Wings. After that, they got to go to LA to play the Sparks, Cameron Brink and Kelsey Plum. Then they come back to Indy for Washington. Then they got a 1, 2, 3, 4 game home stretch in Indianapolis. They got Washington, Seattle, Portland, and the Golden State Valkyries. Then they got a back-to-back, a week apart game from the Golden State Valkyries. They'll be seeing them. And then they got to go to Portland. I think Portland is the new team on May the 30th. Then they got Atlanta. I don't see Chicago on the schedule. When do they play Chicago? They don't play Chicago until August. If I'm reading this, nope, I take that back. They don't play Chicago until June.
All right, let's break down what we actually know here. The Fever dropped their full 44-game schedule for 2026. Tickets hit the market Thursday, January 22nd at 2 p.m. sharp. Season kicks off Saturday, May 9th at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. And guess who they're facing? The Dallas Wings, which means Caitlin Clark's season opener is going head-to-head with Paige Bueckers. That single matchup is going to shatter every TV rating the league has ever seen. Can we talk about how the whole Caitlin Clark versus Angel Reese narrative is basically dead and buried at this point? The Fever don't even see the Chicago sky until June, and it's not getting any special treatment as an early season showcase. The league and every media outlet spent last season pushing that rivalry down our throats. But now it's obvious the real story is Clark versus Bueckers. That's what casual fans actually want to see, and this schedule proves the league finally gets it.
Judging by all of this right here, man, I hate to say it like this, but it looked like Caitlin Clark could very much make a strong argument and a strong case to possibly be the WNBA MVP based off this schedule here. Now, the Indiana Fever did release an article to go along with this schedule, and many reports is starting to come out about this current situation with the team. It stated the 2026 Indiana Fever regular season schedule has been announced. The Indiana Fever has unveiled its complete 44-game schedule. Tickets will go on sale Thursday, January 22nd at 2 p.m. The Fever will open up the season Saturday, May the 9th at Gainbridge.
Looking at the Fever's opening month, they've got things set up pretty nicely. After that home opener against Dallas, they head west to take on the LA Sparks with Cameron Brink and possibly Kelsey Plum. Then they come right back to Indianapolis for 4 straight home games against Washington, Seattle, Portland. and the Golden State Valkyries. This is brilliant schedule construction because it lets the Fever build serious momentum at home right when fan excitement is through the roof. 4 consecutive home games in May equals 4 opportunities to pack Gainbridge Fieldhouse, with fans who've been counting days since October to watch Caitlin Clark hoop again. The Fever also put out an official statement with this schedule drop that tells us a lot. They called this their complete 44-game schedule, which locks in the season length everybody expected. Even more telling, they're already discussing postseason hosting and specific dates, which you absolutely never do if there's real doubt about whether this season is actually happening. Now this is where the negotiation chess game gets fascinating. Alexa Filippo from ESPN posted that dropping the schedule is crucial for teams, partners, broadcasters, and fans to start making essential plans for the year ahead. She mentioned the league sees this as standard business operations that lets teams begin selling ticket packages and locking down arena dates. That sounds reasonable enough on the surface, but think about what this really means. The WNBA is moving full speed ahead, with all the logistics and money-making activities like the CBA is signed, sealed, and delivered, even though they're still supposedly hammering out details. That's either the biggest bluff in negotiation history, designed to squeeze the players, or it's a clear signal that this deal is done and they're just polishing up the final language before going public. My gut says this deal is essentially finished. Here's my reasoning. You don't release schedules, open ticket sales, and get players back in team facilities working out unless you're absolutely certain this season is happening. The financial and PR disaster of canceling everything after fans fade tickets would destroy the league's credibility. Plus, Breanna Stewart just did an interview with Front Office Sports, where she said for the first time since players opted out back in October 2024, she can actually see a finish line to these negotiations. That's huge because Stewart is a vice president of the Players Union. She's sitting at the negotiation table and she wouldn't say she sees light at the end of the tunnel unless serious progress happens. Stewart also admitted that her brain is fried from how complex and wide-ranging these talks have become, which might be the most real thing any player has said about this whole process. She acknowledged she wasn't an economics major, but they're fighting to get the best possible deal while negotiating in good faith. Let me catch you up on where these proposals actually stand, because on paper the gap between both sides is still pretty massive. Back in December, the WNBA proposed giving players 70% of league revenue sharing with a salary cap around $5 million per team. Later that month, the union fired back asking for 30% of gross revenue with a salary cap around $10 million. Notice the key difference here. The league offered 70% of net revenue while players want 30% of gross revenue. These are completely different math problems because net revenue is what's left after all expenses while gross revenue is total money flowing in before any costs get subtracted. Depending on how the league does their renting, 70% of net might actually be less total cash than 30% of gross. The salary cap gap is also enormous. The $7 million versus $10 million per team changes everything about roster building, player salaries, and competitive balance league-wide. ESPN reported the league thinks the union's proposal would create $700 million in losses over the life of this deal. That's the owner's story. We can't pay money we don't have. The players' counterpunch is you're not being honest about the real financials and this league is way more profitable than you're admitting. That transparency issue has been the biggest roadblock through this entire negotiation process. But here's reality check time. If the Fever are dropping schedules and selling tickets, somebody just blinked. Either players took less than they demanded, or owners agreed to pay more than they wanted, or both sides met somewhere in the middle. You don't move forward with concrete planning unless the core financial framework is locked down. The timing of all this happening in late January is also strategic. If they were still genuinely miles apart in negotiations, releasing schedules now would be completely reckless. But if a deal is almost wrapped up, this gives teams a full 3.5 months to sell tickets, handle logistics, and build hype before season tip-off. From pure business math, the league needs ticket money flowing immediately. They need to prove to broadcasters and sponsors that fan interest survived all the CBA drama. They need to justify that massive media rights deal they just signed, releasing schedules and opening ticket sales checks. All those boxes. There's probably also some element of using ticket sales as final negotiation leverage. If tickets fly off the shelves, which they definitely will for Fever games specifically, that gives the league ammunition to say, look, fan demand is still incredible. We can afford to pay players more. If ticket sales disappoint, It backs up the owner's argument that finances are shaky. My prediction is we get an official CBA announcement within 2 weeks. The fact that Breanna Stewart is publicly saying she sees a finish line combined with teams dropping schedules and players returning to facilities means this deal is done and they're just finalizing contract language and planning the public announcement. What happens after the CBA gets announced is going to be absolute madness in the best way possible. We still need the lottery draft to figure out which teams get top picks, including who drafts Paige Bueckers #1 overall. We need the expansion draft where Portland and Toronto build their rosters by picking players from existing teams. Then we need free agency where players like Kelsey Mitchell and Sophie Cunningham finally get to sign contracts. All of that has been frozen solid for months because you can't execute any transactions without a CBA foundation. So once this deal drops, there's going to be a compressed timeline where everything happens rapid fire over just a few weeks. It's going to be content overload for anyone covering the WNBA. For Caitlin Clark personally, this schedule release has to feel like a weight lifted off her shoulders. She's been stuck in limbo since playoffs ended in October training, and staying ready but not knowing for sure when she'd actually compete again. Now she has exact dates, opponents, and a clear timeline to gear up for. The fact that her first game features Paige Bueckers is marketing gold. That's appointment television for casual fans who might skip other WNBA games, but will absolutely tune in for Clark versus Bueckers. The league is smart to showcase that matchup early when hype is at maximum levels. Looking at the Fever's schedule more broadly, they've got a real opportunity for a hot start to the season. That 4-game homestand in May lets them build chemistry and confidence before hitting the road. They don't face Chicago until June, which means the Angel-Reese rivalry that dominated last season's media coverage is getting pushed way down the priority list. That's probably intentional by the league, because they figured out the Clark-Bueckers dynamic is more appealing to mainstream audiences than Clark-Reese ever was. Bueckers is the better player, the games will be more competitive, and there's way less manufactured drama around it. The owners dropping this schedule while negotiations are supposedly still active is also a serious power play. It's the league saying we're moving forward with or without your cooperation. That creates pressure on players to close this deal because the alternative is looking like they're the ones holding up a season that's already being marketed and sold to fans. So the Indiana Fever just released Caitlin Clark's 2026 schedule, with tickets dropping this week, which really suggests the CBA deal is basically finished, even if they haven't made it official yet. We're probably just days away from an official agreement, and then total chaos with drafts and free agency. Smash that like button and subscribe, because WNBA content is about to go completely nuclear.